A bit quiet and
It's so, so quiet. Can we say hi while we're waiting for it to load?
there we go. Okay. Okay, we are live. Welcome to Cartoonists on Palestine.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're quite tight in here, so please try to be conscious of your surroundings. There's a lot of art on the wall. So yeah, just try and be aware of what's behind you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum.
Yeah.
So the Bureau is an all-volunteer independent queer bookstore that Donnie and I founded in 2012, and we've been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. Our regular bookstore hours are Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And then we stay open later for events such as this. And we have a very busy events calendar as we are entering June. So if you'd like to be on our email list, you can sign up for that at the back of the room, or you can sign up on our website, which is bgsqd.com. What else do I need to say? I think that's it, but I did want to read a land acknowledgement and a call for a ceasefire. It might seem redundant at an event like this, but I like having this as a ritual for beginning of our events. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community House's Mannahatta Fund. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native peoples who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. We also want to recognize that today, May 29th, is the 236th day of Israel's genocidal campaign against the Palestinian people, funded by our tax dollars and enabled by our government's unwavering support. We hope that you will join us in calling for an immediate permanent ceasefire, an end to the siege, and an end to the occupation in order to stop the collective punishment of Palestinians and to ensure the swift delivery of desperately needed food, water, medicine, fuel, and humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. And now it is my pleasure to give the mic to Saul Brager and Shay Merck. Please give them a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. I'm here in two capacities. One is as a cartoonist for Palestine, and the other is as the Director of Community Engagement for Jewish Currents magazine. We're super excited to host this event and to continue growing our network of cartoonists. If you are a cartoonist and you want to talk about submitting to Jewish Currents, please let me know. If you came here through Jewish Currents social media or website or whatever, thank you so much. And if you came here through another venue, feel free to check out Jewish Currents magazine or to email me at salman@jewishcurrents.org if you want to know more. Or I have been told that we can give you a discount code for having come tonight. So if you would like to subscribe to the magazine and find out about more events like this one, I am definitely going to continue doing things like this. And, you know, now that we've done one and seen that it is very popular, probably many more like this. So yeah, I'm going to turn things over to Shay to tell you more about Cartoonists for Palestine, the project and soon to be book.
Yeah. Thanks, Saul. Can we get slides up on the screen?
Oh,
Sure. That technology.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks to everybody for being here. It's just
Sure.
so incredible to see all your faces It really warms my heart. So thank you for squeezing
share
me to be
screen.
here. It's really, really special. And my name is Shay, and I'm a comics journalist. I mostly make nonfiction comics. And tonight I'm here because I'm a volunteer editor at an online archive that we just started making this past year called Cartoonists for Palestine. And I'm just gonna step over to clipboard. So tonight's event is a bunch of cartoonists who are going to do readings of their work about Palestine. We have, I think, 5 readers who are reading from their work. Then we're going to take a really short intermission. And then we're going to have a live drawing and music performance by Tracy, Omar, and Nabila. So it's going to be about, I think, like half an hour of readings, a short break, and then some music. Does that sound good? So, great. Altogether, we're going to be here for about an hour, I think. And like I said, if anybody needs a seat at any point, just be like, I need a seat, and we can set up another one. Does that sound nice? Great. Thanks so much to the center and the Bureau of General Services for hosting us. It's so wonderful. Tonight's event is a fundraiser for the Gaza Scholarship Fund for Displaced Students. There's QR codes on all of the pamphlets that you can donate to directly. Also, we're selling books and zines and stickers in back and donating the proceeds of those. So hopefully we can raise some money for a really good cause tonight. This Gaza Scholarship Fund helps students from Gaza come to study in the United States and covers all their expenses. So it's something that for us as artists and cartoonists is really special to be able to try and help other people also make art, share their voices as well. So I just want to say cartoonists, sorry, that's okay. Do you want to click in there?
Funkiness. There
Great.
we go. There.
Great. No, you're good. That's exactly it. So Cartoonists for Palestine started up in October. My friend Yazan Al-Sadi, who's a Syrian artist in Beirut, emailed me and said, what can we do? Do you want to do something? How can we, as cartoonists, document what's happening in Palestine and try and support the people who are there? And so we decided to start a website to publish comics about Palestine, because we were seeing a lot of people publishing work on Instagram and other places, and it was being heavily censored, as well as it was hard to find if you weren't already following all the right artists. And so we decided to make a website where people could publish their work and share it for free. All of the work on the website is donated by the artists, and it's artists from around the world who have donated their work, and it's ever growing. So since we've started, I think we've published about 60 comics on the site, and we're all volunteers. So the artists have donated their work, the editors are all donating. So a lot of the artists you're going to see tonight are people who have donated their work to this archive. It's really powerful to see all this work come together. And for me, I've had a lot of moments over the past 6 months where I felt pretty demoralized and like, am I wasting my life? Does being a cartoonist matter? What am I doing? You know, it's been, Yazan has wrote something for the website that I just want to read because it's really helped me feel like grounded and like, yes, this work matters. So this is something that we wrote together for the site. They said, comics have no walls or borders. Our medium represents an opportunity to reject the boundaries that were assigned to us. All around the world, comics speak about the most important topics of the day. We are not powerless. Through comics, we can shape the narratives told about ourselves and our world. And in that way, we hope to provoke change. So that's what we're doing as artists with our lives. And that's what we're doing here tonight, is trying to celebrate the power of comics to change us, to change the narratives we tell about the world, and to change what's happening in the world itself. If you want, oh, this is a beautiful slide. Graphic design. Yeah, here's our website. It looks better, I swear. You can read it. And tonight, super exciting news. So this has been an online archive, but tonight we're also, for the first time ever, we're having people pre-order the print book that we're going to make of comics on the site. Very exciting. We're going to take a lot of comics that are published on the site, as well as some new original work, and print it up as a book that will sell in the fall, and all proceeds from that book will go to 3 different funds for Palestine. So there's pre-order links, little QR codes taped to the front, stuck in the pamphlets, or you can just go to Cartoonists for Palestine and pre-order it. So when will you receive the book? I don't know. We're going to print it in the fall, so you'll get it after that. But we need enough pre-orders in order to print it. So I just want to say thanks so much to all the cartoonists who have contributed to this, and thanks to everybody here for really believing that art can change ourselves and the world. I'm going to turn it back over to Saul, who's going to introduce our first artist. Sound good?
Sure, yeah. I'm doing like the world's shortest introductions because you have all of the bios of the artists printed out, and so we're going to really focus on the reading. But first up is going to be Kazimir Lee, who is going to be reading the work of Joe Sacco with permission. But also I do want to point out that Kaz is responsible for the gorgeous art for Cartoonists for Palestine and design, and is an extremely talented cartoonist and illustrator.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to start off by thanking Shamework and Jewish Currents and the LGBT Community Center and Soulbreaker for making this wonderful reading happen. Most people will be reading, as Saul said, from their works. I did I drew the introduction to the Cartoonists for Palestine anthology. My images accompanying the amazing writing of Yazan al-Saidi, but it is not from that work that I will be I'll be reading today. As you heard, I'll be reading from Joe Sacco's Palestine. If this book is not in the window of your local bookstore as relevant reading right now, I suggest you get a better bookstore. It's actually, there was a panel here a second ago, me and Yazan reference Joe Sacco's Palestine in the very first panel of the introduction comic to this anthology. So it's a classic for a reason. It was through Joe Sacco's work I first understood this strange confluence of comics and journalism that we awkwardly call graphic journalism. I'm sure there's a better word for that. And it's through Joe Sacco's work that I understood the Israeli occupation. Without understanding the brutality of that occupation, it is impossible, I think, to grasp the passion of Palestinian resistance. Since this most recent genocide, the suffering of the Palestinian people, I think, has been in unprecedented focus for all of us. The inhumanity that we bear witness to every time we attend our private ecosystem of screens can bring up a lot of big feelings. It has for me, at least. Some of these feelings are contradictory. Some of these feelings happen at the same time, even though they're contradictory. There's despair, righteous anger, certainty about that mythic arc of history, uncertainty about where we go from here. Rereading Joe Sacco reminded me that whatever we're feeling, we can't afford to look away. Our humanity can't afford that, and neither can our future. So when I say from the river to the sea, all of you will say, yeah, thank you. All right. Shall I, what do I hit for the space bar?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's me.
It's working.
Actually, I'm going to start here. And speaking of settlements, Sami drives us to the village outskirts. All the land on this side of the road has been confiscated by the Israelis for settlement. It's scores of acres of farmland and pasture we're looking at. Just drops in the bucket. Israel has expropriated 2/3 of the West Bank for its own use, including the settlement of Jews, and I'm not counting annexed Greater Jerusalem. But like Prime Minister Shamir says, if we establish settlement here or expand a settlement there, this is only natural. We are operating according to the understanding that the land belongs to us. And with that understanding in mind, the World Zionist Organization's Master Plan 2010 points out that only 5% of the West Bank is problematic for settlement. I suppose what makes it problematic is that hundreds and thousands of Palestinians still live there. In the countryside, though, They're mostly confined within village boundaries set under British rule in 1942. And the Israelis routinely reject rural building applications, forcing tens of thousands of Palestinians to build and live in illegal dwellings, hundreds of which are leveled every year. In fact, according to some official Israeli figures in 87, 88, the Israelis demolished more Palestinian homes than they granted building licenses. But if a Jew wants to join a settlement on occupied Arab land, it's full steam ahead. Incentives to make your head spin, a government grant to offset moving expenses, eligibility for higher loans at lower interest, cheaper housing than in Israel, a 7% income tax deduction. You get the idea. The yuppie version of a Homestead Act. And while we're on the topic, Sami is a special treat for us. You're in luck. Settlers attacked the village last night. He takes us to a home off the main street. The glass and the front door and windows is smashed in. On the inside, shards everywhere. An axe, dried blood. We'll get the story, but first things first, a cup of tea. First, I heard a smashing sound from my neighbor's house, and immediately a smashing here. It must have been two teens simultaneously, but we didn't see anyone. We just heard the sound of a car starting up. I was frightened and stayed in the back room with my son and daughter. My son wanted to open the door, but I forbid him. We stayed there all night till 5 a.m. without sleep. In the morning, we found the axe lying with the blood. The attacker must have cut himself on the glass and dropped the axe. We learned that nearly 20 homes were attacked last night. A neighbor who's been listening invites us to his home, which he says was attacked 3 nights ago. We've had a long story with the settlers. The soldiers say we throw stones at the settlers' cars. These incidents are a reaction to the settlers' behavior. At his home, the front windows are shattered. Inside, glass and dozens of large stones left there, like the axe, I suppose, to prove to visitors and maybe themselves that such things happen. It was on the eve of our Greek Orthodox Christmas. 10 p.m., I was sitting here watching TV. A group of cars drove down the main street honking horns. The first car stopped and 2 settlers got out with guns and fired 4 times in the air. "Get out of your houses, dogs!" And they yelled bad words about prostitutes, sex words in Arabic and Hebrew. There were nearly 20 cars and maybe 40 settlers, both sexes. I heard a child calling for his father in Hebrew. They started smashing the windows of the home across the street. Another group came at this house. I turned the lights and the TV off, and I drew the curtains. As I was locking the inner door, the first stones came through the window. The attack lasted 15 minutes, and in the morning we found 60 stones. My parents were in their bedroom during the attack. My mother was nearly unconscious from being scared. When I started talking to her, she had no ability to reply. It's not just the money for the windows. What about my mother, psychologically? Meanwhile, his mother, who can't follow our English, is fixing lunch. And I tell you, I need something in my stomach pronto. All this tea, or maybe it's just the sugar, has gotten me jittery. But she is taking her sweet time. She's turning over the bread and rearranging the coals with her fingers. Christ, she's got to have some kind of calluses to handle that heat. And finally, the manners on the table. In the morning, my father went to the settlement to make a complaint, and the settlers are the ones who attacked us, and we have to go to the settlement to report it. The father says they used to have to go to Ramallah military headquarters for such a thing, but now they must go to the Halamish settlement. Settlements now have these political functions. That's where ID cards, licenses, and all the permits are issued. And the son says, anyway, they sent a soldier out to talk to us. I asked him how we're supposed to protect ourselves from such attacks. The soldier says, we haven't got the power to protect settlers or Palestinians. Look, on your side, there's some extremists, and on our side, there's some extremists. And the neighbor says, well, we hope to hear about the charging of your extremists, just like we hear about the charging of ours. I think this case will not be active. I expect no results. That's the end of my read.
Next up reading, we have Jennifer Camper, who I have to thank in particular for being a real force of nature, making sure that this event happened, and just really being incredibly enthusiastic and supportive, not only about this events in support of Palestine, but in support of cartoonists. And for many, many years has been a just real driving force of comics in New York City. And I know I very much appreciate that.
If I stand here, am I blocking your view? Okay. I drew this cartoon in October. I thought the choices were obvious. Apparently they're not. Hey kids, are you female of Middle Eastern descent and living in the US? Then you're eligible to play that exciting game that's sweeping the nation. It's called I'm Not a Terrorist, but if you mess with me, I will hurt you. 5 points for every different pronunciation of Iran and Iraq. 10 points for every new epithet you learn. 10 points for every extra hour spent in an airport if you're wearing hijab. 20 points for every time you hear this. If we include a Palestinian speaker, then we have to include the Israeli point of view for balance. And yet you rarely hear this for any other group. If we include an African-American speaker, then we have to include the KKK point of view for balance. 20 points for every time you find yourself explaining, not all Arabs are Muslim and not all Muslims are Arab. 10 points for every time you separate your eyebrows or wax your mustache. 20 points for every time you don't. And the score, no matter how many points you accumulate, you don't win anything. This is Survival Gaza, the new game that's all the rage. Can you stay one step ahead of genocide? Evacuate North Gaza. Your home will be bombed. The school where you took shelter was bulldozed. Run for your life. The mosque where you thought you'd be safe has been destroyed. Move again. The hospital where you went to have your injuries treated has been bombed. Hobble to safety. Israeli officials tell you to check the internet to find safe areas. Also, Israel has cut all electricity and internet. Go to the humanitarian aid trucks for food. The Israeli army kills you. Game over. This is an excerpt from a comic I drew about friends of mine who are Muslim, queer, and Arab. I'm not Arab, I'm half Lebanese, but I thought their stories were really amazing. So I interviewed them and I wrote this comic in the second person to show that I was telling somebody else's story. And this is just an excerpt. When you think about being Lebanese, you think about lemons and connecting eyebrows. In your mind, lemons are traditional in Arabic. And all your relatives had connecting eyebrows. The women would separate theirs with silver tweezers. Hold still, I'm trying to make you look pretty. Oh, Mom, not now. I want to go ride my bike. You searched for an identity. Usually you had two pictures to choose from. You knew your identity was richer than that, and yet you also secretly gloried in the stereotypes. You are a walking contradiction. Unfeminine woman, Arab born in the US, lesbian who speaks Arabic, Muslim who eats pussy. In some ways, growing up Arab prepared you for being a dyke. The endless discussions about identity. An Arab is someone who speaks Arabic. What about Iran and Armenia? Middle Eastern is too colonialist. Southwest Asian, North African is more inclusive, more confusing. Some of those Maronite Christians think they're not Arabs. Not all Arabs are Muslim. Not all Muslims are Arab. And so on. And you also have this in the lesbian community. See, she's such a dyke. You mean butch? Sort of butchy femme. Soft butch? I'd say hard femme. Top, bottom, pre-op trans? I heard she switches. I thought she was bisexual. She says she's a lesbian who sleeps with men. That's bullshit. And then there's making that split-second decision about when to publicly identify yourself. Did you see those cool pictures on TV of us bombing Iraq? We kicked their butt. Well, can you believe that gays want to adopt children? Isn't that disgusting? Well, and then the need to know self-defense in the Arab community. And when you're a dyke. How much? How much of your US tax dollars do you want allocated for bullets? How much for bombs? How much to destroy homes, hospitals, schools? How much for killing children? How much of your US tax dollars do you want allocated to clean up the destruction caused by your US tax dollars? How much to heal the trauma? Thank you.
Next up is Marguerite Dabaie. This event in many ways came out of a conversation that Margot and Jen and I were having around the responsibility of cartoonists in this moment, which is, you know, how we got connected to Shay, and how this event came to be. And I've, again, really deeply appreciated those conversations. And also, if anyone here or on the live stream has any connections to Japan and wants to connect Margot to clients in Japan, Margot unfortunately is leaving us to move to Japan, and is looking to build a portfolio of clients there. And I'm just doing my small part.
Thank you so much, Saul. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's honestly really great to see everybody here. This is awesome. So I'm just gonna start, I think. Spoiler alert, this comic is really angry. This comic is new, actually. I drew it, you all are my first audience for this comic. I drew it on the heels of what's been going on, and yeah, I'll just get right to it. Oh, wrong way. So the title is The Nameless. Who's the white kid with the terrorist? Was she kidnapped? Uncle Mike and Uncle Adel were beaten up today because some guys thought they were Iranian. We had a good life in Palestine. We can't go back. We lost everything. Our last name used to be Salami Dabaie, but we got rid of the salami part because Americans wouldn't understand. What cartoons do you watch? Bashar Ya Bashar? What is that? No, you're a girl. You will not be riding a bike. This is page 2. Your pants are so short. Buy some new pants. We don't have money. Arabs are lying snakes and they're only good for the oil. Yep, you can't trust anything they say. It's going to be extra difficult for you to test into our art program because you're white. I am. Make an art piece based on your culture. Margot, this isn't accessible enough to your audience. I don't even know what to say about this. Asterisks, they assume a primarily white audience. Your glasses are old and nasty. Can't you buy new ones? We don't have money.
So I guess I'm white, even though I don't relate to the lives of my white classmates. This is what the adults tell me. Depressed, depressed. 9/11 happens. Fuck them, fuck Arabs, especially Palestinians. Look at them dance in the street. Well, they weren't the ones who hijacked the planes, though. Fuck you, terrorist. I think you should hide. Don't tell people what you are anymore. This is page 3. This is all wrong and I know it. I have to say something. Here are comics I drew about Palestinian stuff because I'm a Palestinian. That's neat. We're not going to publish that. Our audience won't get it. You know, Dabaie's dying. Maybe you should work on something else. How can you talk about your dad like that? It's making all Arabs look bad. Are you even sorry? Are you even Arab? You're hella white. I got vocal about Palestinian rights online and the FBI searched my house. What? This is New York City. They wouldn't do that here. I want to visit the West Bank, but the Israeli government has a history of detaining anyone of Palestinian descent. What? But you're American. What are you talking about? Why do you keep drawing all these weird comics that our audience can't engage with? Asterisk, white, asterisk. The audience won't relate because it's not about white people. You're too white for our diversity committee. I'm white, but I'm also not. Your privilege is showing. I finally have the means to visit the West Bank, and I have a plan in case I get interrogated. Looking forward to seeing Palestine and where my family lived. 4th page. October 7th happens. 1 month before my trip was canceled. True story. Look at those bloodthirsty savages, beheading babies, raping. We should murder them all. Oh God. Asterisk debunked accusations. You hate Jews if you love Palestinians. Arabs could have accepted a land deal in 1948, but they didn't. Asterisk. They didn't accept half of their country being stolen. Doom scrolling through hours of footage of dead children whose parents look like me, sobbing every day. Check out what our taxes are doing. The world would be peaceful if they were all dead. Just nuke everyone and turn Gaza into beachfront property. No one wants Palestinian refugees. They're useless. Chronic stress, stomach aches. They're so stupid they can't even win awards. They're children of darkness. All they do is destroy. Asterisk. Western awards. Because according to the West, those are the real awards. And you don't win Western awards by doing anything like existing that undermines an ally, like Israel. Yeah. I just learned what a Palestinian is, and I'm now going to talk over actual grieving Palestinians. Behold, my masturbatory think piece about how I'm above petty political arguments because Palestine, Israel doesn't personally affect me. How are you so brilliant? I gotta get out of here. If you don't love America, get out then, you ungrateful Arab. And this is the last page. I'm not gonna read all of it. I'm just reading a couple of passages. Your terrorist scarf is garbage. I think it's better if we just don't form a strong opinion about this whole thing. Why are you so upset? Arabs do calligraphy, right? I'll have you know that unlike you Arabs, we treat our women well. You're agender, you're lucky you're here, they murdered you there, haha. I, a non-Arab American, have been to the West Bank a bunch of times and it's great. You should go. What do you mean you can't? Just go. Wait, does that mean that you hate Jews? And that is the end.
Next up, we have Eli Valley. I don't know if anyone else is a Jewish cartoonist who has been canceled before, but Eli, in many ways, I think is like the OG and is a role model and a hero to a lot of us. And it is a pleasure and a privilege to be published in the same places as him. I also want to note that one of the things that, if you're familiar at all with Eli's work, one of the things that's really amazing about his work is that he doesn't shy away from showing some of the intense horrors of what's happening in the world around us. So some of the images in Eli's presentation are a little intense, so just like a heads up.
Hi. Okay. Hi. Do I need a microphone? Do you need a mic? Because I only have two hands and I have couldn't put the notes on the thing here, so I have them on my phone. And so, can you hear me, or do you need a mic?
I think
We good? Okay. All right. I want to talk about the challenges of depicting horror as it is happening, after the worst hyperbole has become reality and after we've passed the precipice of genocide. See, even if this would happen. Okay, so I'm trying to coordinate. This drawing, Israel's Defense, was published in Jewish Currents in January during hearings at the International Court of Justice, in The Hague with South Africa, bringing voluminous evidence of Israel's crimes against humanity, including, of course, as we've all seen, their TikToks and social media, glorifying the atrocities they were committing. But I actually started drawing it in December during the first round of show trials orchestrated by Christian Zionist anti-Semites in Congress against American higher education, partly to distract from Gaza and partly as part of their larger agenda. So this was it back then in December. Is the world watching? Does nobody care? For the sake of humanity, we beg you, American universities, stop genociding Jews. But the initial show trials ended, the semester ended before I finished the art. This is the way it would have looked. I knew they'd come back in full force as they did a few weeks ago, but I wanted to finish it before then. And also, I felt a little bit uncomfortable putting words in the mouth of emasculated Palestinian men in blindfolds, underwear, zip ties, and taking the focus from the devastation in Gaza to American Jewish politics. I am aware I'm a white Jewish guy in New York, completely inured to the devastation, making these Palestinian figures speak my joke. It felt a little bit glib and felt like maybe I was trivializing or exploiting it. Even if the point was a distraction from genocide, I didn't want to be glib. So I decided to make the words come from the pigs and grain. So at first it was this. Good news. It's not anti-Semitic to use the word genocide, but they're actually saying this. So it's like, you're not even going beyond reality at all. And then, of course, they claimed, well, you can't see because it's me, but I am not the blood libel. Israel claimed, so they actually said that the, this is 29 December, that the South African case against them for violating the Genocide Convention was a blood libel. So I just use their words basically. So again, but I think it's a little bit better than the genocide anti-Semitic one. But honestly, it's a blood libel. I hit play on our genocide TikToks if you can't see. Honestly, I didn't want any text. I feel that it's better as a wordless Guernica, and I was conscious of the risks of trivializing. As we know, people have been sharing these images, which is extremely crucial to do. But when we share it so much, we become partly inured, and also people are doing it sometimes. It's like you're like trading for clout almost. Other people I'm sure have spoken about this more articulately. So it made me a little bit uncomfortable. So I decided to just draw as witness, and I wanted the viewer to be witness too, which is why I have the rubble in front, placing the reader there, you're looking into it, you are part of it, you're implicated, and you're complicit, as we all are complicit in what is happening. So everything in the drawing happened. This here is from photos that were released in Israeli media in December. Israeli military censors allowed it. It's still unclear whether, the IDF denies it, but people are saying that the IDF actually orchestrated it, or individuals in the IDF. All these images, the objectives seemed to be that they were trying to say, oh, we captured all the terrorists, even though relatives immediately pointed out their relatives who were doctors, journalists, humanitarian aid workers among the blindfolded. the main reason was probably to keep domestic genocidal fervor at a fever pitch. Here's another example of that, drawn from photos from this. Again, this war was never about hostages. It was always about annihilation and humiliation. Oh, yeah, then there's this. From another incident in December, Israeli bulldozers crushed sick, wounded Palestinians outside Gaza hospital, stuff that's happened repeatedly. And in that case, I didn't have actual images, but I drew from the headline. This man raising a white flag references hostages raising white flags that were killed by Israeli soldiers, a haunting reminder of a phenomenon that fails to make headlines when the victims are Palestinian. The menorah with dancing Israelis. Right there. I mean, it's just one example that actually came out after I was drawing the menorah, but here is during Hanukkah, it was December when I was drawing much of this. There were Hanukkah menorahs set up in Gaza. I actually finished it after Hanukkah, so I kept it a 7-branch menorah. But of course, I got the haters coming in, brought out the trolls. LOL, he didn't even know how many branches Hanukkah had. The Nazis are getting dumber, folks. Jews always win. A central component of Zionism is to remove the Judaism of everyone who is not Zionist in the Jewish community. And that's exactly what he's doing there. Of course, he assumed all the menorot in Gaza were Hanukkah menorot, but that just wasn't true. Here you can see Israeli soldiers placed menorah on the medical faculty of that university in Netzarim. Look at this guy. He's actually bringing back a menorah that was from the illegal colony from the 1970s until 2005 during the so-called disengagement. Here's a picture of it being brought out during the disengagement. And then he's bringing it back right there. So the trolls are always wrong. They're just haters. Okay, and then I'm going to end with this. This is actually depressing, but it's important to talk about. I want to coordinate here. Okay, this is image from the trucks. They're all, in addition to the other images I showed earlier of blindfolded men, there's also a truck that went around, an image of a truck, blindfolded men and a woman. You couldn't really tell at the time, you know, the gender, but it turned out, as you'll see, this is one of the images that was shared triumphantly in Israel. This person is that person, and then 54 days later, she came out. She was in detention all that time, and then she told her story. Sorry. It's actually a pretty horrifying story. I don't know if I want to mispronounce it. Hadil al-Dadu. I don't want to mispronounce it, but she was robbed, beaten to the point of she had a 9-month-old baby who was breastfeeding at the time. They took her away from the baby. She also had a 4-year-old child. They beat her so much that her cesarean wound or scar had opened. They shot guns in the air while she was blindfolded and told her that they just murdered her husband. They put her in a ditch and said that they were going to bury her alive. I mean, the accounts of this woman, and here she is actually in a video by Middle East Eye, talking about it afterwards. They used the back of the Kalashnikov, kept hitting me and said, "You're a liar." It's just there she is with her baby. My cut got infected and opened up. It's really very upsetting, and I just want to say no art can approximate this hell. That's it.
So next up is Ben Passmore, who I think is one of the great masters of color working today for sure, and also just one of the greatest nonfiction cartoonists working today. If you don't follow Ben's broadcast channel on Instagram, it's incredible, and you get to vote on the topic that Ben draws about, which I really feel like you should be charging for, but it's amazing.
Okay, what's good? Peace, peace. Okay, so I have a series of caveats, which maybe is just due to me liking to apologize. Also, some space between this comic and others. But so I not being Jewish or Arab or Palestinian, I was thinking about like what can I contribute to the conversation. I tend to make comics that sort of that are nonfiction that are sort of talking about the intersections of the Black radical tradition, political violence, all that stuff, resistance. So I was sort of thinking back. I was like, okay, like what can I talk about? And I mean, for me, something I thought about was pretty early on in October, I think, because part of the context for Palestine for me when it was introduced to me was through like, you know, Malcolm X, people like that. And often I find myself when people are sort of, okay, so people reacting to October 7th and are seeing videos of Palestinians like knocking down the walls. I was fucking hyped, you know what I mean? And I realized like, people were like, oh, this is a complicated issue. I was like, it's not that complicated for me. You know what I mean? Like, as a person who feels in constant affinity with colonized people, I'm like, if you're doing apartheid, you get clapped. Like, I don't know what to tell you, you know? And then of course, you know, like as the student resistance stuff was coming up, I was like, oh, this is really the first time I'm 40, you know, I'm inside, I'm not out on the streets like I used to be. So it was wild to see all these kids like out there and initially sort of doing what it sort of reminded me of like Occupy and things like that, where people like were very hitting real hard on the peace, you know what I mean? And I'm an anarchist. That's not a priority for me particularly, but I understand. And you know, like one response, right? So the kids were really, really peaceful, and people were still like, "Why aren't you being like Martin Luther King?" Da da da. And I was like, "Okay, this is my area. You know what I mean? This is what I can speak to." So this, what I did, and I'll stop talking in a second. So 5 years ago, because I'm old and washed, I was given an assignment to write about Martin Luther King by a white editor to talk about, which the reason I mentioned that will be clear in a second. But they asked me to write on the subject that Martin Luther King was more radical than you think, which is a very subjective, right? He's either exactly as radical as you think he is, or whatever. But I was like, white editor, okay, I understand what they mean. But I wrote about it, and I think often people talk about it, so want to talk about socialism, that's important. But for me, I write about political violence, and I'm someone who is not, you know, politically nonviolent, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's enough of a caveat. So, but what I'll say is that I originally did this 5 years ago, and then for y'all, I added a bunch of new stuff, but I was angry and high for some of it, so it's maybe a little rambling. I apologize for that. Boom, caveat over. Thank you for saying that. Okay, yeah. Turn up. Oh, and also I usually like to clip it up and or whatever, but I didn't. You know, blah blah blah. So I'll be reading. I'll take this out. And right in the middle show. Okay, so Martin Luther King Jr., more radical than you think. It's been 50 years. Oh, it's been over 50 years since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I think we've done him dirty. Dr. King gets referenced a lot by Americans of all political persuasions and even the US government, but most people evoke his name with no understanding of who he actually was. This is Martin Luther King Jr. on steroids. And he's talking about North Carolina Lieutenant Governor, who's also a minister of some kind. I don't know, he's not like Martin Luther King. He's a piece of shit. And the fact that he's been simplified into a caricature representing quote unquote equality doesn't feel like an accident. Since early October, we've seen this caricature paraded out to question the legitimacy of protests against Israel's genocide against Palestinians and the longstanding apartheid that preceded it. And that's a little arrow for your author. I used to have dreadlocks, so I have dreadlocks in this comic, in case you're confused. Like I said, I am older. Whether it be Amy Schumer posting clips of him on her Twitter account, and this is Martin's, or yeah, Martin's, I'm not going to do his voice. She does know I was against militarism, or the local cops beating your head in. Lots of apologists for Israel's war crimes have used Dr. King's name to shame us. Stay peaceful. And I'm talking to Martin. I'm like, I think what she knows is convenience, Dr. King. The irony being that this recent rise in pro-Palestinian protests, whether they are disrupting armed shipments to Israel or occupying university campuses, have been deeply committed to nonviolent tactics. Which is not to say Dr. King's advocacy for nonviolence against white supremacy or oppression in general, which is not to say that I agree with, there's some typos, I apologize again, hi. That I agree with Dr. King's advocacy for nonviolence against white supremacy and oppression in general. My conclusions about the issue are pulled from criminally less celebrated luminaries in the civil rights movement, in this case, Kwame Ture, member of SNCC, also first person to yell out loud Black Power. And he said, in order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. And I would expand this to all occupiers. And I'm saying preach. But that's the know-it-all old man I am now. At the start, I knew the same thing most people did. In most schools, we only learn about the I Have a Dream speech at the Million Man March, the March on Selma, the bus boycott that also probably involved a whole lot of marching. And my teacher is saying, what can you tell me about the March on Selma? And Baby Ben is saying, I know I'm trying to Selma Green Ranger for some magic cards. Thank you. To my disrespectful ass joke. And this caption is saying, if you didn't even know that, I don't blame you. My kid brain was not that elevated either. Dr. King wasn't concerned primarily with peaceful marches by themselves, though. From early on, his strategy, along with his lesser-known contemporaries, was to grind white society to a halt in the name of Black liberation. The civil rights movement specifically boycotted white businesses in Black areas, understanding that they could easily leverage businesses that were making a living exploiting them. They also managed to bring white life to a grinding halt by sitting down where white people didn't want them. And I'm trying to order a white egg omelet. Dr. King knew what kind of rage and violence he was provoking, and he chose to not react in self-defense when it came for him. No matter where you stand on the subject of violent or nonviolent resistance, that's a wildly brave thing to do. As time went on, Dr. King developed a more intersectional political analysis explaining his attack on racial segregation to foreign policy, an economic critique of American society. And an economic critique of American society. It was not enough to integrate society if all of society itself was insufficient. And he's saying here, now our struggle is for genuine equality, which means economic equality, for we know that it isn't enough to integrate lunch counters. As hated by white Americans as Dr. King was, it was his focus on economic injustice and the Poor People's Campaign, which was building to a 3,000-person occupation of the Washington Mall that put him in the federal government's crosshairs. And this is John L. McClellan, who's a piece of shit. And he's saying the occupation, is a premeditated act of contempt and rebellion against the sovereignty of the government. That probably sounds really familiar when people talk about occupations now. Oh, cool, thanks. FBI J. Edgar Hoover used agency resources to monitor MLK's movements and wiretap his communications in an effort to prove that the civil rights leader was a communist agitator. Hoover and his goons even went as far as sending confusing, threatening anonymous letters to Dr. King in an attempt to scare him into killing himself. Similar tactics the FBI would use on the Black Panthers much later. And then this is me imagining the FBI using Twitter to say, @MLK, delete your account and kill yourself. When I learned about what... Thanks for that. When I learned about what the FBI did to Dr. King, it made me wish he had, as Brother Malcolm X would say, stop singing and start swinging. And I'm saying to MLK, you know, you got shooters, right? And MLK is telling me to chill. And for anyone in these translation, I'm saying I will shoot the cops. Hey, Kev. As much as I respect Dr. King's bravery, I'd be lying if I didn't think that he didn't play an active role in the over-reliance and valorization of self-ordained leaders of political movements. They could be non-profiteers or simple peace police. This person is telling me, don't fight back, we're peaceful. Back in 2014, during the uprising in Ferguson, I watched Black folks fill the streets to protest the police's murder of an 18-year-old kid named Michael Brown. Hands up, don't shoot. It didn't take long for famous political leaders to show up and to co-opt the decentralized movement. Folks in Ferguson were not having it, which this is taken from people confronting Jesse Jackson in his car. And they said, when are you going to stop selling us out, Jesse? We don't want you here. And the other brother saying, you can get moving and get some brothers out of jail. This was only one of the longstanding tensions between the people engaged in fighting their oppressors and the professional activists that build their careers off of Black rage. And they're burning a cop car. And MLK is saying what we need right now is organization. And I'm being helpful in saying I will get matches. If he gets matches, I'll get some gas. Oh shit. By most accounts, Dr. King was in the trenches. He won folks' trust by genuine action and being a revelatory speaker. In times of turmoil, it's helpful to have people who can speak to our struggle and articulate strategy. And MLK is saying we must cripple the operations of oppressive society. So ableist, I think it was also the 50s, so my bad for that quote. But people who can study, plan, and speak, I've come to believe that those are the only skills worth having. Just like the saying goes, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a time for long speeches. The task, and this is Huey Newton saying, the task is to transform society. Only the people can do that, not heroes, not celebrities, not stars. And then the caption says, Huey Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, and the subject of his own disastrous cult of personality. If you know, you know. It's important to not make pillars out of people, because we'll start to believe that we can't get liberation without them. As we watch our nation back another nation's supremacist massacre of the Palestinian people, it's easy to feel impotent and complacent. There are a lot of leaders, quote unquote, trying to sell you a quick fix to your rage. But it's important to remember that we are part of a long tradition of battling oppression, and we've learned a lot at this point. You don't need anyone's permission to pick up where Dr. King, Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, and others have left off. This is Martin. He's saying nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. At this point in history, Martin Luther King Jr. and his strategies have been defanged and revised to be a tool for empire, for both liberal and right-wing conservatism. So we can honor him by remembering the man with clarity. And this is the last quote. I can remember when Negroes were just going around scratching where they didn't itch and laughing when they were not tickled. But that day is over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. That's it.
Thank you so much to all of our incredible readers in the first part of our reading tonight. We're going to take a short break to like 10 minutes. Maybe you can introduce yourself to someone that you don't know, or run to the bathroom or get some water or whatever you have to do. And also maybe if you have had a seat for a long time and you feel like you can stand and want to give your seat to someone else, we can do like a rotation, and we will reconvene soon. And buy merch and donate with the QR code that we will put back up.
All right. You are now being heard.
Okay, nice. I love the jacket for Scotland. Yes. By the way, we're being recorded. Just so we know. Where's that? Hey. Oh, thank you. Have you been? So good to see you. No, I missed you so much. Yeah, we'll go out probably. You know, we showed up.
Bring you on.
So good. I'm sure. I know a bet. Yeah, where is Ben? Oh, see him after. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But can we turn this light on? Yeah, this one. Okay.
Tonight is really a treat. We have a musician here named Omar who plays Puppets of Babylon. And Omar is going to be improvising an electronic track for about the next 30 minutes. So kind of painting with sound. And he'll be accompanied by Tracy and his love for we're going to be live drawing. And we'll be ripping off each other. The library, you'll see that here. We'll be drawing. Omar will be playing. It's going to be about 30 minutes long. We're going to keep it quiet in here, but you're welcome to browse the book. We're going to bookstore. We'll read any of the material back. So feel free to get up and move around and read. But let's keep it quiet so we can focus on the music.
We're actually gonna turn off the lights to see this better, so
Maybe
not reading.
Sorry.
So thank you so much for being here.
Others. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks. So stressful. Oh, thanks.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody. Thank you so much to the Bureau for having us. Please peruse more merch with select events, and see you at the next one.
This one with electronic.
Yeah, I know this.